an accusation from a female customer. That was all it took. A waiter slammed face down onto a table in the middle of a crowded restaurant. No investigation, no evidence. No one stood up for him. In minutes, a man's dignity was crushed simply because he wore a server's uniform and had no voice. But what the police and that woman didn't know was this. The man they were brutalizing wasn't the powerless target they assumed. And when the truth came out, nothing could ever go back to the way it was. So, who was Liam Vance really? Liam Vance moved through the dining room with the kind of efficiency that came from years of repetition. 38 years old, lean build, dark hair starting to gray at the temples. He carried 2 plates in one hand and a water pitcher in the other, navigating between tables without breaking stride. The dinner rush at Harborside Grill was in full swing, and he had a rhythm to maintain. He'd worked here for nearly 3 years, long enough that the regulars knew his name. Long enough that his co-workers stopped asking about his life outside these walls. Liam preferred it that way. Simple, quiet, predictable. The job paid enough to cover rent and groceries, enough to keep his son in a good school district. That was all that mattered. He refilled a coffee cup at table 7, smiled politely at an elderly couple who thanked him, then turned toward the kitchen. His eyes swept the room as he walked. Not obviously, just a quick scan. Table assignments, who needed refills, which guests were finishing up. It was second nature now, though the habit had started long before he ever wore an apron. The security camera mounted near the front entrance caught his attention for half a second. Black dome in the corner of the ceiling, always recording, always watching. He knew there was another one in the back, covering the dining area. Liam noted their positions the way someone else might notice the time on a clock. Then he kept moving. In the kitchen, his co-worker, Elena, was plating salads. "Table 12 wants extra dressing," Liam said, setting down his empty plates. Elena nodded without looking up. "Got it." Liam grabbed 2 orders from the pass and headed back out. His posture stayed balanced even when carrying heavy trays. His movements were controlled, deliberate, no wasted motion. Some people might call it grace, others might not notice at all. Either way, Liam never drew attention to himself. That was the point. He delivered the meals to a family of 4, checked on a businessman eating alone, then returned to the host stand where his next table was being seated. The woman who walked through the door wore a tailored blazer and designer sunglasses pushed up into her hair. Expensive handbag, heels that clicked sharply against the tile floor. She didn't wait for the hostess to guide her. She just picked a booth near the window and sat down. Liam picked up a menu and walked over. "Good evening," he said evenly. "Can I start you off with something to drink?" The woman didn't look at him. She was scrolling through her phone, her jaw set tight. When she finally spoke, her voice was clipped. "I'll have sparkling water, San Pellegrino, not tap." Liam wrote it down. "We have bottled sparkling water. I'll bring that right out." She glanced up then, eyes cold. "I said San Pellegrino. Do you have it or not?" "We carry a different brand, but it's the same style. I can—" "Then it's not what I asked for, is it?" Liam kept his expression neutral. He'd dealt with difficult customers before. It came with the job. "I'll bring you our sparkling water," he said calmly. "If it's not to your liking, I can offer you something else." The woman, whose name he would later learn was Evelyn Thorne, set her phone down and looked at him like he'd just insulted her. "I don't think you understand how customer service works," Evelyn said, her voice rising slightly. "When someone asks for something specific, you either provide it or you apologize and offer an alternative. You don't argue." Liam hadn't argued, but he didn't say that. "I apologize if there was any confusion," he replied. "I'll get you that water now." He turned to leave, but Evelyn wasn't finished. "Wait." Liam stopped and faced her again. She leaned back in the booth, arms crossed. "I want to speak to your manager." "Of course," Liam said. "I'll get him for you." He walked toward the back office where the manager, Marcus, was doing inventory. "Table 9 wants to talk to you," Liam said simply. Marcus looked up from his clipboard. "Problem?" "She's upset about the sparkling water options." Marcus sighed and set the clipboard down. "All right, I'll handle it." Liam returned to his other tables. He refilled drinks, cleared plates, brought out desserts. Business as usual. From across the room, he could see Marcus talking to Evelyn, his hands open in a calming gesture. Whatever he said seemed to work because Evelyn eventually nodded and picked up her menu. Marcus caught Liam's eye on the way back to the office and gave a small shrug. Crisis averted. Except it wasn't. 20 minutes later, Liam returned to Evelyn's table with her order. Grilled salmon, no sauce, steamed vegetables on the side. He set the plate down carefully. "Is there anything else I can get for you?" he asked. Evelyn looked at the plate, then at him. "This isn't what I ordered." Liam glanced at the ticket in his hand. He'd written it exactly as she'd said. "I have grilled salmon, no sauce, steamed vegetables," he confirmed. "I said roasted vegetables." Liam looked at the ticket again. She definitely said steamed. But he didn't argue. He just nodded. "I'll have the kitchen fix that for you right away." He reached for the plate, but Evelyn pulled it back. "No, forget it. I'll eat this, but I'm not paying full price." "I'll make sure the manager takes care of that," Liam said. "You should take care of it," Evelyn snapped. "You're the one who got it wrong." Liam didn't respond. He just nodded and walked away. In the kitchen, he told the line cook what happened. The cook shook his head but said nothing. Mistakes happened. Customers changed their minds. It was part of the job. When Liam brought the check to Evelyn's table 30 minutes later, she was on her phone again. He set the bill down quietly and stepped back. Marcus had adjusted the price for the vegetables. He said, "Is there anything else I can help you with?" Evelyn glanced at the check, then at Liam. Her expression shifted into something darker. "Actually, yes," she said slowly. "I want you to know that your attitude has been completely unacceptable." Liam blinked. "I apologize if I—" "You've been condescending and dismissive from the moment I sat down," Evelyn continued, her voice loud enough now that nearby tables were starting to look over. "And frankly, I don't feel safe." Liam's expression remained steady, but his voice stayed level. "Ma'am, I've only tried to—" "Don't interrupt me," Evelyn said, standing up now. Her hands were shaking, but her eyes were sharp, calculated. "You've been hovering over this table, making me uncomfortable. You've argued with me multiple times. And just now, when I asked a simple question, you got aggressive." Liam hadn't been aggressive. He hadn't even raised his voice. But the other diners were watching now, and Evelyn knew it. "I think you need to leave," Liam said quietly. "I'll get the manager." "No," Evelyn said, pulling out her phone. "I'm calling the police." Liam's eyes flicked up just for a second toward the security camera covering the dining area. Then he looked back at Evelyn. "There's no need for that," he said calmly. "If you're unhappy with the service, we can resolve this another way." But Evelyn was already dialing. She held the phone to her ear, her free hand trembling dramatically. "Yes, I need help," she said into the phone, her voice shaking. "I'm at Harborside Grill on Maple Street. One of the staff members has been threatening me. I don't feel safe. Please send someone." Liam stood perfectly still. His shoulders were square. His breathing was controlled. He didn't move closer, didn't speak. He just waited because he knew the truth, and he knew there was a camera recording every second of this. The police arrived in less than 10 minutes. 2 officers walked through the front door, their hands resting near their belts. The taller one had graying hair and a hard expression. The younger one looked fresh out of the academy, his uniform still crisp. Both of them scanned the room quickly before their eyes landed on Evelyn, who was standing by her table with her arms wrapped around herself like she was cold. She pointed at Liam. "That's him," Evelyn said, her voice breaking. "He's been harassing me since I got here." The older officer, whose name tag read Sterling, walked over to her first. His partner, Officer Hayes, stayed near the entrance, watching Liam. "Ma'am, are you all right?" Sterling asked Evelyn, his tone softer than it had been when he walked in. Evelyn nodded quickly, wiping at her eyes, even though there were no tears. "I just want to leave, but I was afraid to walk past him." Sterling glanced at Liam, who was still standing near the booth, his hands at his sides. Calm. Still. "Sir, can you step over here for a moment?" Sterling said, gesturing toward the far side of the dining room. Liam nodded and walked in the direction the officer indicated. He didn't argue, didn't ask why. He just moved. Hayes followed him, staying a few steps behind. "What's your name?" Hayes asked. "Liam Vance." "You work here?" "Yes." "How long?" "Almost 3 years." Hayes pulled out a notepad. "The woman over there says you threatened her. What happened?" Liam kept his voice even. "I was her server. She was unhappy with the service. I tried to resolve it. She called you. That's it." Hayes looked unconvinced. "She seemed pretty shaken up. You sure you didn't say something to her? Maybe get a little too close?" "I didn't threaten her," Liam said. "I didn't raise my voice. I didn't touch her. I served her food and brought her the check." "Uh-huh," Hayes said, still writing. "And she just decided to call the cops for no reason?" Liam didn't answer that because the answer was yes, and he knew how it sounded. Across the room, Sterling was still talking to Evelyn. She was nodding along, her hands gesturing emphatically. Whatever she was saying, Sterling was listening. Marcus, the manager, appeared from the back office, his face tight with worry. He walked over to Sterling and Evelyn. "Officers, I'm the manager here," Marcus said. "Is there a problem?" Evelyn turned to him, her expression sharp. "Your employee has been harassing me. He refused to follow my order, argued with me about the menu, and then stood over my table in a threatening way. I asked him to leave me alone, and he didn't." Marcus blinked. "Liam? He's one of our best." "I don't care," Evelyn interrupted. "I want something done about this." Sterling held up a hand. "Sir, we'll handle this. Just give us a minute." Marcus looked over at Liam, confused. Liam met his eyes briefly, then looked away. There was nothing Marcus could do here. Nothing anyone could do. Sterling walked over to where Liam and Hayes were standing. "Mr. Vance, we're going to need to ask you some questions," Sterling said. "The complaint is serious. The woman says you made her feel unsafe." "I didn't threaten her," Liam repeated. "She says otherwise." "Then she's lying." Sterling's expression hardened. "You calling her a liar?" Liam didn't flinch. "I'm saying I didn't threaten her. If she says I did, then yes, she's lying." Hayes stepped closer. "You getting an attitude with us now?" Liam's eyes flicked to Hayes, then back to Sterling. He didn't respond. "Here's what's going to happen," Sterling said, his voice hardening. "You're going to cooperate. You're going to answer our questions, and you're going to do it respectfully. Understood?" Liam nodded once. "Good. Now, did you or did you not approach her table multiple times tonight?" "I'm her server. That's my job." "Did she ask you to leave her alone?" "No." "She says she did." "She didn't." Sterling exchanged a look with Hayes. Then he turned back to Liam. "Let me see some ID." Liam reached slowly into his back pocket and pulled out his wallet. His movements were deliberate, careful. He opened it and handed over his driver's license without a word. Sterling took it and looked at the name. "Liam Vance, 38 years old, Address in the south part of town. You live alone? Sterling asked. No. Who do you live with? Liam hesitated just for a second. My son. Sterling handed the ID to Hayes, who started writing down the information. Your son know you're out here threatening women? Liam's expression tightened, but he didn't take the bait. I didn't threaten anyone. Right, Sterling said, his tone flat. So this woman just made it all up. That what you're saying? Yes. Sterling shook his head. I've been doing this job for 23 years, Mr. Vance, and in my experience, people don't call 911 unless something actually happened. Then your experience is wrong, Liam said quietly. Hayes stepped forward. Watch your mouth. Liam didn't respond. He just stood there, his shoulders square, his breathing controlled. He wasn't going to give them a reason. But it didn't matter. They'd already decided. Sterling turned to Marcus. Does this place have security cameras? Marcus nodded quickly. Yes, we have one near the front entrance and one covering the dining area. Can we see the footage? Of course, Marcus said. I'll pull it up right now. But before Marcus could move, Evelyn spoke up. That's not necessary, she said, her voice trembling again. I just want to leave. I don't want to press charges or anything. I just want to go. Sterling looked at her. Ma'am, if this man threatened you, we need to take it seriously. We can review the footage and— No, Evelyn said quickly. I just want this to be over. Please. Sterling studied her for a moment, then looked back at Liam. Something in his expression shifted. He didn't believe Liam, but he also didn't want to deal with the paperwork if Evelyn wasn't going to cooperate. All right, Sterling said. Ma'am, you're free to go, but Mr. Vance, we're going to need you to come down to the station and answer some questions. Am I under arrest? Liam asked. Not yet, Sterling said. But if you refuse to cooperate, that can change real fast. Liam's eyes flicked up to the camera in the corner again, just for a second. Then he looked back at Sterling. I'll cooperate. Good. But before Liam could take a step, Evelyn spoke again. Wait, she said, her voice louder now. He's just going to get away with this? Sterling turned to her. Ma'am, you just said you didn't want to press charges. I don't want to go through a trial or anything, Evelyn said, but he should be held accountable. He should at least be arrested. Sterling sighed. Ma'am, we can't just arrest someone without— He threatened me, Evelyn shouted, her voice cracking. He stood over me and made me feel like I was in danger. Are you seriously going to let him walk out of here like nothing happened? The restaurant had gone completely silent. Every table was watching now. Phones were out. People were recording. Sterling looked at Hayes. Hayes shrugged. Then Sterling looked at Liam. Turn around, Sterling said. Liam didn't move. I didn't do anything wrong. Turn around, Sterling repeated, his voice harder now. Check the cameras, Liam said, his voice still calm but edged with something sharper. They'll show you exactly what happened. Turn around now, or I will make you turn around. Liam's hands curled into fists at his sides. Not a threat, just tension, but Hayes saw it and stepped forward. Don't even think about it, Hayes said, his hand moving to his belt. Liam's eyes stayed on Sterling. I'm not resisting, but you're making a mistake. Last chance, Sterling said. Liam turned around slowly. He put his hands behind his back without being asked, because he knew how this worked. He knew that resistance, even the appearance of it, would only make things worse. Sterling pulled out his cuffs. Liam Vance, you're being detained for questioning in relation to a harassment complaint. The metal clicked around Liam's wrists. Cold. Tight. You have the right to remain silent, Sterling continued, his voice flat and practiced. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. Liam didn't say anything. He just stood there, his head slightly bowed, his breathing slow and steady. Hayes grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door, not gently. As they walked past Evelyn, she looked at Liam with an expression that was almost triumphant. Her arms were still crossed, but the trembling had stopped. She wasn't afraid. She never had been. Liam looked at her just once. And in that look, there was no anger, no hatred, just something cold and unreadable. Then he was outside. The police car was parked at the curb, lights still flashing. Sterling opened the back door and guided Liam inside, his hand on top of Liam's head to keep him from hitting the frame. Liam sat down in the back seat, his hands still cuffed behind him. The door slammed shut. Through the window he could see the restaurant, people standing near the entrance, watching. Marcus was on his phone, probably calling someone. Evelyn was walking toward her car, her heels clicking on the pavement, and above the dining area, barely visible through the window, was the camera, still recording, still watching. Liam leaned his head back against the seat and closed his eyes. He'd done everything right, stayed calm, didn't resist, trusted the system to work the way it was supposed to. But it hadn't mattered, because when power chose a side, the truth became irrelevant. Sterling got into the driver's seat and started the engine. Hayes sat in the passenger seat, typing something into his phone. Neither of them looked back at Liam. As the car pulled away from the curb, Liam opened his eyes and stared out the window. The restaurant grew smaller in the distance. The people, the tables, the life he'd built for the past 3 years, all of it disappearing. He thought about his son, Ethan, 10 years old, waiting at home, probably doing homework at the kitchen table, probably wondering when his dad would be back. Liam's chest tightened. He'd promised Ethan a quiet life, a safe life, no complications, no trouble. And now, because of one lie from one woman, that promise was breaking. The car turned onto the main road, and the restaurant vanished from view. Liam closed his eyes again, and for the first time in a long time, he felt the weight of everything he'd left behind pressing down on him. The police station smelled like burnt coffee and old paper. Liam sat in a small interview room, his hands still cuffed behind him, the metal digging into his wrists. The room was gray. A table, 2 chairs, a mirror on one wall that he knew wasn't really a mirror. Sterling and Hayes stood near the door, talking in low voices. They'd been there for almost 20 minutes, waiting for someone to process the paperwork. Liam hadn't said a word since they'd brought him in. Finally, a desk sergeant appeared in the doorway. A middle-aged woman with tired eyes and a clipboard. "I need his information," she said to Sterling. Sterling handed over Liam's driver's license. The sergeant took it and started typing into a computer at the desk outside the room. Liam watched her through the open door, her fingers moving over the keyboard, the screen glowing in front of her. Then she stopped. Her expression changed just slightly. She leaned closer to the screen, her brow furrowing. "Sterling," she called out, her voice sharp. Sterling walked over. "What?" The sergeant didn't answer. She just pointed at the screen. Sterling looked. His face went blank. "You're sure?" he said quietly. The sergeant nodded. "It's flagged. Red priority." Sterling turned and looked back at Liam through the doorway. His expression was tight now. His hand moved to his radio. "I need a supervisor down here," Sterling said into the radio. "Now." Hayes looked confused. "What's going on?" Sterling didn't answer him either. He just walked back into the interview room and stood in front of Liam, staring at him like he was seeing him for the first time. Liam didn't move, didn't speak. He just waited. 3 minutes later, a man in a suit walked into the station. Late 50s, clean-shaven. The kind of presence that made everyone in the room stand a little straighter. He didn't introduce himself. He just walked straight to the desk sergeant, looked at the computer screen, then turned toward the interview room. When he saw Liam sitting there in handcuffs, his expression hardened. "Get those off him," the man said, his voice low but absolute. Sterling blinked. "Sir, he's being held for—" "I don't care what he's being held for. Get the cuffs off now." Sterling hesitated for only a second, then pulled out his keys and walked over to Liam. He unlocked the cuffs and stepped back. Liam brought his hands forward slowly, rubbing his wrists. The skin was red where the metal had pressed in. The man in the suit walked into the room and closed the door behind him. He looked at Sterling and Hayes. "Out," he said. Hayes started to protest, but Sterling grabbed his arm and pulled him toward the door. They left without another word. The man waited until the door was closed. Then he looked at Liam. "Major Vance," he said quietly. Liam's eyes lifted. He didn't correct the title, didn't say anything. The man pulled out a chair and sat down across from him. "My name is Lieutenant Miller. I oversee internal operations for this precinct. I was notified the moment your name was entered into our system." Liam's expression didn't change. Miller leaned forward. "I need to know what happened." Liam's voice was flat when he finally spoke. "A woman accused me of threatening her. I didn't. Your officers didn't care." Miller nodded slowly. "After you were brought in, your manager contacted us. He reviewed the security footage and sent it over. I've watched it myself, and it shows exactly what you said. No threats, no aggression, just a woman lying to get you arrested." Liam looked away. "Then why am I still here?" Miller didn't answer right away. He just studied Liam's face, the tension in his shoulders, the careful control in his breathing. "Because my officers didn't know who you were," Miller said. "And they should have done their job properly regardless, but they didn't. And now we have a problem." Liam's expression tightened. "I don't want to be a problem." "You're not," Miller said. "They are." He stood up and opened the door. Sterling was standing in the hallway, his face pale. "Officer Sterling," Miller said. "Come in here." Sterling walked in slowly. His eyes didn't meet Liam's. Miller gestured to the chair. Sterling sat. "Tell me what happened," Miller said. Sterling swallowed. "We responded to a harassment complaint. The woman said he threatened her. We detained him for questioning." "Did you review any evidence before detaining him?" "No, sir." "Did you ask any witnesses?" "No, sir." "Did you request security footage?" Sterling hesitated. The manager offered to pull it up. The woman said it wasn't necessary. Miller's voice went cold. "And you believed her?" Sterling didn't answer. Miller turned to Liam. "Major, I apologize. This should never have happened." Liam stood up. "I'm free to go?" "Yes." Liam walked toward the door, but Miller stopped him. "One more thing," Miller said. "The woman who made the accusation, Evelyn Thorne. We're bringing her in for filing a false report. The footage is clear. She lied, and she'll be held accountable." Liam looked at him. "I don't want revenge." "This isn't revenge," Miller said. "This is justice." Liam nodded once, then walked out of the room. Sterling stayed behind, sitting in the chair with his head down. Miller stood over him, his arms crossed. "You and Hayes are suspended pending internal review," Miller said. "You used excessive force on a decorated veteran based solely on the word of a civilian with no corroborating evidence. You didn't follow protocol, you didn't use your training, and you humiliated a man in front of an entire restaurant." Sterling's hands were shaking now. "I didn't know." "You didn't need to know," Miller cut him off. "You needed to do your job, and you failed." Miller walked out, leaving Sterling alone in the gray room. Back at the restaurant, Marcus was reviewing the security footage on his office computer when his phone rang. It was Miller. "This is Lieutenant Miller with the police department," Miller said. I'm calling about the incident earlier today involving your employee, Liam Vance. Marcus sat up straighter. Is he all right? He's fine. He's been released. I wanted to thank you for sending over that security footage. It was instrumental in clearing Mr. Vance's name. Marcus let out a breath of relief. I figured you'd need to see it. What she was claiming didn't match what I saw. The customer who made the accusation, Evelyn Thorne, is being charged with filing a false police report, Miller continued. She won't be able to do this to anyone else. Good, Marcus said firmly. I also want to let you know, Miller said, his tone shifting, that Mr. Vance's file is flagged in our system. He's a former officer in the United States Army Special Forces. He served multiple tours overseas and was awarded the Silver Star for his actions in protecting civilians during a hostile engagement. He left the service after sustaining injuries in the line of duty. Marcus sat in silence for a moment. I had no idea. Most people don't, Miller said. He prefers to keep that part of his life private, but I thought you should know what kind of man works for you. I appreciate that, Marcus said. I'll make sure he knows he's welcome back anytime. Miller hung up. Marcus sat there staring at the phone. Then he stood up and walked out to the dining room. A few customers were still there, finishing their meals. The staff was cleaning up. Elena, one of the servers, walked over. Is Liam okay? She asked. Marcus nodded. He's fine. He'll be back. Elena smiled, relieved. Marcus looked up at the security camera in the corner, the black dome that had recorded everything, the truth that no one had wanted to see until it was forced into the light. He made a mental note to check those cameras more often. Liam walked through his front door just after 8 Uarkurs. The house was quiet except for the sound of the television in the living room. He closed the door softly and set his keys on the table. Ethan was sitting on the couch, a notebook open on his lap. He looked up when Liam walked in. Hey, Dad, Ethan said, smiling. You're late. Liam managed a small smile. Yeah, sorry about that. Ethan closed his notebook and stood up. He was small for 10 years old, with dark hair and his father's eyes. He walked over to the kitchen table and picked up a piece of paper. Look, Ethan said, holding it up. I got a 96 on my math test. Liam took the paper and looked at it. Red ink at the top, a big, smiley face next to the grade. That's great, buddy, Liam said. His voice was steady, but there was something underneath it, something tired. Ethan noticed. You okay? Liam folded the test paper carefully and handed it back. I'm fine, just a long day. Ethan didn't push. He just nodded and walked back to the couch. Liam went into the kitchen and opened the fridge. There were leftovers from last night. He pulled them out and started heating them up on the stove. Ethan called from the living room. Did anything cool happen at work? Liam stirred the food slowly, watching the steam rise. He thought about the restaurant, the accusation, the handcuffs, the look on Sterling's face when he realized who Liam was. Nothing special, Liam said. Just a normal day. Ethan appeared in the doorway, leaning against the frame. Dad? Liam looked at him. Can I ask you something? Sure. Why don't you ever talk about the army? Liam's hand stopped moving. He set the spoon down and turned off the stove. It's not something I like to think about, Liam said quietly. Was it bad? Liam looked at his son. Really looked at him. The kid who waited for him every night. The kid who never asked for much. The kid who deserved better than a father who couldn't let go of the past. Sometimes, Liam said, but it taught me a lot. Like what? Liam walked over and sat down at the table. Ethan followed and sat across from him. It taught me that the things that matter most aren't the big moments, Liam said. They're the small ones, like coming home at the end of the day, like seeing you do well on a test, like eating dinner together. Ethan smiled. That sounds boring. Liam laughed. A real laugh. The first one all day. Maybe, Liam said, but boring is underrated. Ethan tilted his head. Dad, are you happy? Liam didn't answer right away. He thought about the question. Really thought about it. Was he happy? Not in the way he'd been before. Not in the way most people measured happiness. But in this moment, sitting across from his son in a quiet house with food on the stove and a math test on the table, he realized something. Yeah, Liam said finally. I am. Ethan grinned. Good, because I'd be sad if you weren't. Liam reached across the table and ruffled Ethan's hair. The kid laughed and pulled away. Go finish your homework, Liam said. I'll call you when dinner's ready. Ethan grabbed his notebook and headed back to the couch. Liam stood up and went back to the stove. He finished heating the food, plated it, and called Ethan over. They ate together at the table. No TV, no phones, just the two of them. And when Ethan asked if they could watch a movie after dinner, Liam said yes, because at the end of the day, that was all that mattered. Not the title he used to have, not the recognition, not the respect of strangers, just this, just home. Across town, Evelyn Thorne sat in a holding cell at the police station. Her expensive blazer was wrinkled. Her hair was a mess. Her phone had been taken away. A female officer stood outside the cell, arms crossed. Someone will be here to process you soon, the officer said. Evelyn didn't respond. She just sat on the bench, staring at the floor. The security footage had been clear, undeniable. She'd lied, and now she was paying for it. The charges were serious. Filing a false report, wasting police resources, possibly even defamation. Her lawyer was on the way, but even he had sounded tired on the phone, like he knew this wasn't a case he could win. Evelyn closed her eyes. She'd been angry, frustrated, looking for someone to blame, and she'd chosen wrong. Liam and Ethan finished their movie just after Torsholt. Ethan was half asleep on the couch, his head resting against his father's shoulder. Time for bed, Liam said softly. Ethan mumbled something and stood up, stumbling toward his room. Liam followed and tucked him in. He pulled the blanket up to Ethan's chin and turned off the light. Good night, Dad, Ethan said, his eyes already closing. Good night, buddy. Liam stood in the doorway for a moment, watching his son sleep. Then he walked to his own room and sat on the edge of the bed. He thought about the day, the accusation, the arrest, the moment when everything could have gone wrong. But it hadn't, because someone had checked. Someone had looked at the footage. Someone had cared enough to find the truth. And that was enough. Liam lay back on the bed and stared at the ceiling. He didn't need the world to know who he was. He didn't need recognition or validation or apologies. He just needed this: a quiet house, a safe home, a son who looked at him like he was a hero, even though he'd never told him the stories. That was the real victory. Liam closed his eyes and let the silence settle around him. And for the first time in years, he felt at peace. Moral lesson and life skill. This story teaches us that true character is what you do when you think no one is watching. And true power is the ability to remain composed when you are being tested. Evelyn Thorne believed her social status gave her the power to destroy another person, while Liam Vance, a man of immense actual power and history, chose the path of quiet humility. Life skill. Always document and verify. In a world where accusations can be made in a heartbeat, the truth in the corner, the security camera, was Liam's silent witness. But more importantly, the skill of emotional intelligence, EQ, is highlighted here. By not reacting with anger or violence, Liam maintained his moral high ground. When life treats you unfairly, do not lower yourself to the level of your accuser. Stay calm. Speak the truth clearly, and let your history and the evidence speak for you. Dignity cannot be taken. It can only be surrendered. Cow?